make seltzer on a Walmart budget.
I'm Greg.
I'm Julie, and we're the Crafty Winers.
So most of our videos are tailored towards people that are already making wine as a hobby. In this series, we have, I think we're up to 6 or 7 different Walmart budget videos, including white wine, red wine, champagne, Arnold Palmer.
Yep.
But this is another one. This is going to be seltzer. So this is going to end up being a strawberry seltzer that we're making, although you can substitute the flavor and make it a different flavor if you'd like. But this series uses only stuff that you can buy from Walmart. So you don't need to get anything specialized to make it. Is it going to be as good as what you can make if you get all the tools and all the ingredients that people that make wine at home usually get?
No.
Probably not, but it'll be pretty darn good for what you're having to invest into it.
Yep, cheap.
So this is a really good way to decide if the winemaking or alcohol making hobby is right for you without having to break the bank. This is a container that we got from Walmart. There are several different 2-gallon containers with a spigot. That's all that really is important. We've used several of them in our other videos that you can go refer to. This is what we have for this one today, and it's got a little bit of
Because I just washed
sanitizer.
it.
So we use Dawn antibacterial to wash everything beforehand, and that's important because the stuff that you're putting in here to make it habitable for yeast also can be hospitable to bacteria. So it's good to get the bacteria out first. So antibacterial Dawn is cheap, and we will link it in the description below. Everything that we're using will link to Walmart. We make no commissions currently off of what you buy from Walmart. So we are going to put our water in to our pitcher. So we're using a pitcher to make the measuring part of this a lot easier. And this came from, it's just a Rubbermaid 1 gallon, 3.8 liter. I'm going to add water to about the 3/4 gallon mark so that we have room for our sugar.
Which is a significant amount of sugar.
Lots of sugar. So this sugar, something close to this. I caught that.
Good catch.
Something close to this amount of sugar is in grape juice naturally, but of course it's not in water. So that is going to all turn, in a perfect world, hopefully in our world, that's going to all turn to alcohol. And I suppose I don't want to splash water into our sugar because then it'll be a little harder to deal with. That's 3/4 of a gallon.
And this is 3 cups of sugar.
Completely 3 cups. So this is going to end up being good for about 7% ABV, which is a healthy amount for a seltzer.
Yeah. It's more than Truly's are. Okay.
So sugar alone is not quite enough to make yeast happy. You need to have some kind of nutrient. And it wasn't easy trying to find something that you could get from Walmart because you usually use something called Fermento or even GoFerm, or there are a bunch of other brand names of nutrients. But what we're using is wheat germ that comes from Walmart, in addition to some Fleischmann's yeast. And it's important in this to bake this in your oven. We do it at 225 for 10 minutes to kill any yeast that might be in the wheat germ. If you don't have wheat germ at your Walmart or you don't want to buy it, you can use whole wheat flour. Try to stay away from anything that's bleached because that can destroy the nutrients that we need for this. Put the proportions up on the screen because I don't remember them right now. You can make a batch of this and then use this for all of our Walmart video series, so you only have to make it once.
Yeah.
Unless you're making a lot of our batches, and then you might have to do more than that. But again, I'll put the proportions of yeast to wheat germ up on the screen, but the mixed part, we want a tablespoon. I'm going to put that in now because I don't like to stir, and I am going to have to stir here in a minute, so I only want to do it once. And I'll fill this up to the gallon mark.
The wheat germ floating down there.
The wheat germ will float. Whole wheat flour is probably going to be the same, and that's fine because the reason we have the spout is so that we can get rid of that at the end. I'm going to stir for an incredibly long time, unfortunately. You want the sugar and everything to be especially the sugar, to be very well mixed. What are doggies done?
Pippin's trying to make sure we don't leave without her.
We're leaving town after this filming session, and the dogs can sense that because they're stuffed by the front door. So they're acting a little antsy today, thinking that they're going to be left behind, but they're not. Okay, so this is stirred well enough. I got a lot of particles floating. That's normal. I'm going to go ahead and spill this all over everything while trying to get it into our fermenter. And the
Whoops.
spout wasn't closed. Close the spout before you follow our example here.
That was my fault.
Might end up with a little bit less than a gallon at the end of the day. That's fine.
Now we need yeast. And that's it.
This is
Flashman's.
Flashman's Active Dry Yeast. Available, obviously, from Walmart.
And it's super cheap. Which is why I'm going to use most of this packet. I don't remember what the price was, but you get 3 of them.
3 of them for like $1.97 or something.
Yeah. I'm going to save a little bit for the next step.
Or the next video.
Or the next video, yeah.
All of our ingredients were already room temperature or warmer. But before you do the yeast, it's good to let this warm up to at least 80 degrees if you can. It's just less of a shock on the yeast. But even if you don't do that, it's probably okay. So there's an air hole, a little tiny pinhole inside this lid. So that means that gases can escape, but it's so tiny that bugs can't get in. That's important. If you don't use this exact container, make sure that you're using something that provides that same functionality. And again, you can watch our other Walmart budget video for other ways that we've done it. We used a cork with a hole in it and a balloon on one.
Yep.
When it had a big hole. You can put the lid on loosely, but there's going to be a lot of CO2 unless you do something majorly wrong. There's going to be a lot of CO2 escaping from this as it ferments. So you've got to let that CO2 out, or it is going to go someplace. It may cause some kind of problem. And you don't want things to be able to get into this, like fruit flies or any kind of insect. So put it on loosely, but the pinhole that's in this lid, this particular container, is good. So depending on the alcohol that you're making, it may take longer or shorter amount of time, and the temperature really, really drives how long it takes. I would suggest letting this sit in a warm room for a month before it's done. And that's because it's a little bit starved, even with the wheat germ that we put in here, a little starved for nutrient. So it's going to take longer to ferment than other things that we teach you to make on a Walmart budget. So plan on this being away for a full month. You should probably tomorrow notice that this starts bubbling and you'll know that it's fermenting. And then a month later, you should see that most of that activity has stopped. But you do want this to completely ferment or it's going to leave sugar in there and it's going to end up being way too sweet. And it's not going to have the ABV of 7, it'll be a lot less. So plan on a full month. And we will see you after we've waited a month. Okay, it's been about a month. And this has completely stopped bubbling. There is no activity. So we know it's done. You can also take a little taste of it, which it's going to not taste good, I'll warn you, because we haven't added flavor to it yet. But what you're looking for is that it's not sweet, which tells you that the fermentation is done. Done finished or done stalled, meaning that it didn't convert all the sugar. But at that point, regardless, you're probably going to want to continue. So what we want to do now, there's a bunch of what's called least at the bottom of this, and that's the dead yeast and the nutrient that we added, as well as other things that have dropped out of the must. What do we call seltzer? Out of the seltzer water. Seltzer water, that's what it is.
It's not really must, is it?
So we want to leave that in this container before we start mixing our flavor in, because we don't want this to go into our final product.
Nope.
Which is why we wanted the spout. So the spout lets us get the liquid out without taking much of that least with it. So this should be fairly clear. And the first part of this that came out had a little bit of the crap in it, but that's fine. This is homebrew. Actually, it's hobo homebrew.
Yeah.
I'm tipping this at the end just a little bit to try to get most of the liquid, but it's better to leave a little liquid and not get any of the least at the bottom. So you can make your own judgment if the liquid is worth that danger, because it's hard to get back out if you get it in there. I'm going to call that good. So we've got almost perfectly clear now seltzer water that's not flavored. So from here, we are going to carbonate this. It's called naturally carbonating it, which means that we're going to put this in a PET bottle. And we got these bottles by buying club soda and tonic water from Walmart,
Yeah.
drinking it or tossing it, the liquid inside, and because we just wanted the bottles. You can use soda pop bottles. You can use anything that's designed for carbonated beverages. But the tonic water and the Great Value tonic water and
Club soda.
are cheap. They're less than $1, I believe.
Yeah, they're like 98
So
cents.
these bottles are great. We reuse these over and over.
As you can tell.
Yeah, they're not fancy, but for the purpose of what we're doing here, you can spend the time to get the labels off. We didn't do that. There's a limit on how much sugar can be in this to not over carbonate and possibly still blow one of these bottles up or pop the cap off. So you can't use flavoring that's got sugar in it, preferably. So we picked strawberry mango, sugar-free, Great Value brand drink mix. So make sure that whatever flavoring you do use, either you know what you're doing as far as the sugar is concerned, or use sugar-free so you don't have to worry about it. I would definitely recommend use sugar-free.
Yeah.
So we know from experience with this that 6 packets is on the verge of being too much, and 4 packets of this is on the verge of being too little. We're going to use 4 because we're a little bit less than a gallon. We left a little bit of that in there. And I will put up on the screen when I figure out how many ounces of... Oops, I left one in there. How many ounces of mix this is, but it's 4 packets worth. And scissors are not a bad idea when you're doing this.
It says tear here, but...
It does, but it's Great Value. So.
Yeah.
1, 2...
It also makes it a prettier color.
Color sometimes does not stay through the carbonation phase. We'll see. So that's 4. Again, we think the 6 is a little much. So 4 or 5 is what I would recommend, depending on if you want it to be a little bit less on flavor or more on flavor. So with the flavor in there, now is not a bad time to taste it after you've stirred it up. It'll be a lot better after it's carbonated, but it'll give you a little bit of an idea. Carbonation adds bitterness to it, and it takes a little of the sweet away, but this will give you an idea of the flavor level. Just know that it's going to be a lot better after it's carbonated. So this is a controlled amount of sugar. This is how much sugar?
6 teaspoons.
So 6 teaspoons. So this will give us the carbonation level that is adequate for a gallon of this drink, of the seltzer. So I could have saved myself a little work by putting that in when I put the flavoring in.
I was going to say something, but...
I'll stir again. I wouldn't recommend putting more than that much sugar in here, just like I wouldn't recommend using flavoring that's not sugar-free.
Also wouldn't recommend you put the sugar straight into the bottles, because you're not going to get an even amount in each bottle.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get it dispersed correctly when it's in the full gallon rather than trying to get a little pinch in each bottle. This is, though, going to give us a CO2 level and the carbonation that we think is good for the seltzer. We're only showing you in one bottle, but we're going to keep pouring bottles until there is no liquid left. I'm going to carefully pour out a bottle. This will end up being about 3 bottles that are this size.
And then I'm going to take some more of my Fleischmann's Active Dry Yeast that I had left over from another Walmart recipe.
Now, there is still yeast in this that is alive, and you probably don't need to add this yeast, but we do it just to make sure that there is viable yeast.
Yeah.
It's called insurance yeast.
And you just take a tiny little pinch.
Yeah, you don't want more than 10 grains of it or so, or you could make your drink taste
I don't know,
yeasty.
that might have been 11.
Uh-oh. Take one of them out.
Just a tiny little pinch. just right on top, and you don't need to shake it or anything. Just leave it.
Yeah, you probably don't want to shake it.
Yeah.
Put the lid on very firmly. Don't over tighten it so that it cross threads or anything, but you want this to be on tight.
And get it on straight. I always have a problem putting it on crooked.
You can squeeze it to make sure that no air comes out. But
that's good.
The fact that air can't get out of this is what makes it end up being carbonated. So you want to keep this at room temperature for, I would say, about a month is going to be the safe amount of time to wait for that carbonation to happen.
Because once you open that lid, it's done. So
you kind of end it when you open the lid and release the pressure. So
better to wait longer.
You'll be able to feel it now, and it's it's a little squishy. After about a week, maybe 2 weeks, it won't be squishy anymore. And at the end of 4 weeks, it should be
solid.
Really hard to push in. And there's no other sign that it's carbonating or doing anything else. You're not going to see bubbling in it, probably. Really, the only way that you know that it's carbonating is that it's really hard to push in. So give it about a month at room temperature. We are going to do the same, and then we will come back and taste the final product.
Okay, so it has been a full 4 weeks. We kept it at room temperature, and then we stuck it in the fridge yesterday so that it would be cold for our tasting, because it tastes much better cold. So let's go.
So I'm almost positive it was pinker.
It was.
So the fermentation that causes the carbonation got rid of some of that color.
It's interesting.
I'll try to put that in the video, that little hiss. You can tell that it's carbonated. And you should see carbonation bubbles, although I'm not seeing as many as I would expect.
I see some. There's
bubbles, a lot of bubbles
in
the bottle. Leads me to believe that maybe it's not exactly as carbonated as I wanted.
Maybe we could have left it another week, but I mean, it has carbonation in it, and it tastes really good.
Oh wow, yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to taste as good as this.
Yeah, it tastes really good. But it's not as carbonated as I was hoping for.
So I guess really just leave it longer than you think.
Yeah, within reason, the longer the better.
Yeah. I mean, it's that way with the sparkling wines we make and stuff too. I try to leave it longer than I think it needs.
The amount of sugar usually controls the carbonation level. You could try a slight bit more sugar, but I wouldn't suggest doing a lot more. And then part of what's happened with us probably is we've gone from summer to winter, and our basement temperature has changed.
It's fluctuated.
So you want it to be room temperature, like a 70-ish temperature probably for the level of carbonation we were after with the amount of sugar that we did. It's great though, don't get me wrong.
The flavor is really good.
The flavor is good. Ours could be a little bit more carbonated than it is.
A little bit more, but it's still, I mean, yeah, it's still good.
And I'll zoom in on that so you can see the carbonation bubbles. I just would rather a little more in the taste. But it's really good. It tastes like a Truly that I've never had, but it's that level of quality flavor.
Yeah, the sweetness is just right.
There's a little bit, when you go in to drink it, I can smell a little bit of yeast.
That's because we put yeast in it.
And that probably won't go away. You'll probably get that because of the way that we made this. It's not filtered or anything like they would probably filter it.
Right.
But I would put this up against most seltzers out there.
And it's also a little higher ABV than Truly's are.
It's 7%.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little more than 7% because a little bit more fermentation happened for carbonation. So
yeah, I think it turned out good.
Yep.
So thank you guys for watching another one of our videos. I hope you enjoyed this series of Walmart wines and seltzers and whatnot. It's kind of a fun experiment, even if you are a seasoned winemaker. So I would suggest give it a try. It's fun, and it turned out good. It tastes good. I'll drink this. So hope you liked it. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you very much. We appreciate you. And until next time, cheers.